Welcome back to Island Tea with your faves. And it is time to continue terrorizing the airways like we do all the time.
But yeah, Kevon, actually we have a very special guest with us in studio. I'm hoping you're not suggesting that you're going to terrorize him. But
nope. I leave that's for Jade to do.
Okay.
Nah, I'm too nice for that. I don't terrorize anyone.
Yeah, man. But we have in studio with us Leon Natta. Leon, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, for sure. You know, we have a track record of having conversations with very interesting people who are doing things and in the community, and it's a real pleasure that you took the time out to come and sit with us today.
Right, and I'm so appreciative of the invitation. So let me start by saying good morning to you guys, and good morning to all the listeners out there and viewers, if we do have any viewers.
Yeah, man, they're watching you.
It's my pleasure to be on Island Tea this morning. I was expecting that, there would be coffee cups and those guys. So, on my next invite, I get that. Yeah.
No problem. You see, the thing is, right?
Right.
I'll let Jade handle that, because we don't get this question all the time.
Right.
You know what I realize with people? They always come in here and say, "Oh, we expect." How come nobody ever expect to bring nothing?
No, I didn't want to overstep my boundaries. Right. So if I do get the next invite, trust me, it will be probably later.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
That sounds better.
The thing about it,
but you see, we took the same approach.
Yeah.
We didn't want to overstep either, so we didn't.
Oh, okay. I understood. I guess based on the conversation previous, I guess this makes it a little more balanced now. Now you have Leon Natta Nelson, who is a part of the Labour team. So
right, exactly.
I was listening on my way, so
right.
Interesting topic.
Yeah, but the thing about it, there might be some people. There might be some people who may not know exactly who you are and what you're into. Mm-hmm. Just for the viewers and the listeners, you could just tell us a bit about who you are.
Leon Natta Nelson, originally Leon Natta, but all my last names, as people do ask me, where do I get Nelson from? All my last name are my mother's names. I grew up in Molineux, born and raised in Molineux. Spent all my time there. The only time I left was to go to school. I grew up started on Bamboo Street. And Bamboo Street was where, once you reach Bamboo Street, you reach Molineux. That's where the buses turn around. Mm-hmm. And drop you off, and then they go back to town. Bamboo Street is where I've always been fortunate, except the last couple of years, where I moved to Thomas Street. I've always been fortunate to live where the basketball court and the playground, the Hector Gilbert Sporting Complex, it's either to the front of my yard or the back of my yard. Mm. So when the court was built, I think in around 88, 87, I was there as a young boy. Mm-hmm. The court was at the back of the house, so at afternoons I would go out and help in whichever way. I mean, right. those bigger guys would say go inside and so on. But I absorbed everything and so on. Witness the court being made, witness the playing field being leveled, and the events that was there ever since then. My grandmother, Ida Natta, she used to sell black pudding. Mm. So the court being our backyard. When there's events on the court, as you come of age, you then have to participate in selling in the bar, mm-hmm. and so on. So I will see all the political activities, and I also engage in all the sporting activities that went on there: basketball, mm-hmm. football, volleyball, netball, cricket, mm-hmm. every sport. And I managed to make one national team in my life, which is the junior basketball national team. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, and went on from Molineux Primary School, went on to Cairn High School, then journeyed to college in Brooklyn. During all the time, while becoming a man, engaging in sports, I was the first to organize basketball competition in Molyneux. I did that for 3 years. Then I also ran football league in Molyneux. Then I ran the football league in Atlees. And I think, that set the standards for outer season football league. We call it the Bush Football League. Every time we had football, we had DJs. It was a real festive atmosphere. One of the best, I could say, around the island.
Yeah, but let's talk about that, because you have been over the years very much involved in sports.
Yeah.
Not just participating, but like you said,
I worked at the football office for some time as well, for about 8 years.
Right. And so, tell us a bit about where that passion came from. You mentioned that you grew up basically with the court and the sporting facility being your front and your backyard.
Yeah.
Growing up. But what role has sports played in your development? And also, what would have urged you to start facilitating some of these competitions that you were involved in?
Yeah, very good question. One thing sports did for me, I think, coming from Molyneux Primary School, I was always competing in athletics, in sports and event. And the only person that used to beat me was my brother. Up until I reached Ken High School, then my brother stepped out of running, and then I continued, but there was one guy I just couldn't get over. So I'm always, drove the competitiveness in me.
Right.
When it came to leadership, when I joined the large Patriots Football Club, from early age, I think, they put some responsibilities on my shoulder. They brought me into the executive, and that's where the leadership came across. It was my turn now to take full responsibility of the team and the affairs of the team. And it led to me going into the community and, establishing the same leadership responsibilities. And that's one thing I could be very proud of, is that during my tenure, and I'm still the president of the Lad Football Club, during my tenure as the president, there's never been, although we haven't won the major competition, one thing I can boast about is that the talents and the individual that has come through under my leadership, none of them has been arrested, none of them has been charged with anything. They have all been, good, honest, hard-working guys that have tried to make better of themselves. And
so you see the club as being something that has really helped to mold and shape the men of the community.
Yes, and it's even when I ran the basketball league in Molyneux, crime wasn't so rampant at that time, because at the end of the day, during the week, for a specific amount of time, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, guys had things to do, and they were occupied in their mind during downtime. These things integrate societies. People from different communities would come to the villages, and that's where relationships are started as well. Right. So it's a very dynamic impact it makes on the community going forward.
Yeah, it's not lost to anyone that's paying attention the numerous positive effects that sports and sports involvement, whether it's you're on the court or the field, or you're involved in management in some way, plays on the people that are involved in it, and how that really helps to build societies and build communities. But you were then speaking about and just going into the fact that you went off to study in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And what was your discipline?
Accounting. And while I was there, I also played for the school as well.
Okay.
So we continued the journey into sports, even when I came back and so on. So, accounting was and still is my discipline. It's amazing that I had this conversation with somebody a couple of days ago, one of those investors who works at in the Frigate Bay area. I started speaking to him about construction, and we ventured, and he just asked, "So, you into construction?" I said, "My background is accounting," but it's a trend that is setting nowadays. A lot of people who go off to study. You have lawyers who love DJ music. You have people who do nursing or criminal justice who does narrative nail
Right.
technicians. You have people who do accounting and they want to do mechanic. And so gone are the days where it's just about the academic. You know, people want to get hands-on, and that's
Right.
what I think the future is going to hold for us, where people are not going to go and settle for a single degree or just a minor degree. They're going to go and get some qualification in some other skills that is also their passion. Because I think a lot of time people go to school just to satisfy the status quo or satisfy a childhood dream. But their passion is always in something else. For example, look at Jeffrey Hanley. He went, I can't remember what he studied in school, but he's also creative designer. You know, Candice Mena might have done, he's an engineering in IT, but he's also a Calypsonian.
Right.
You know,
right.
so there are different things and different trends that are being set by persons. As time goes by, people are going to find different interests in things, not just one primary interest, but multiple interests in different type of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's important as well, because especially now during the pandemic, where we're seeing so many people having to readjust and realign and get involved in things that they may not have been involved in prior to the pandemic. It really gives you an opportunity to have options
Right.
moving forward. And I do believe that people who have passions should
Be allowed to
explore,
express, right.
explore and express those passions. You're saying, Jade?
Oh, I'm just happy that he pointed out that, you know, school isn't the end all be all. Yes, you can go to school and if that's your passion, but you can also have other passions and not feel like if you don't have this academic degree or something that you failed or that you've not been progressing, because that's, I feel like, a big stigma. If you don't have a degree or something, a piece of paper to say that you've been to school, people just look at you like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, or you don't have the experience, and that's not the case. So I'm happy that you lamented on some of that.
I think too, what's important to note is I don't believe that there's anything that we experience in life that doesn't help to shape us in some way, even if we may not be conscious of it. And so just you spoke about, for instance, a lawyer who also loves to DJ.
Yeah.
Like, I believe that there are skills that he would have honed in one aspect that would then be transferable and usable in other aspects.
Right.
Right? And so that type of thing should be encouraged, because it really, when I was teaching, for instance, I would never have expected that some of the skills that I would have acquired there would then help me in my entertainment and music career. But I could see how those things, even though being on the radio and having to talk and on a mic every day, right?
That's a teaching background kicking in.
Yeah, so it's things that I would have practiced and learned in that profession now coming out in these other places. So it's very, very interesting to see how how the different things that you've been involved in, whether it's sports, leadership, accounting, how that would have shaped the man who you are now.
Right. And just to add, you know, I studied accounting. I can do masonry, I can do carpentry, I can do mechanic, can do plumbing, I could do some electrical, I can do data connections.
Hold on, this ain't a dating show, you know.
But I'm just saying,
this ain't a dating show. I feel this. Let me see what the comments saying.
Like your wife, your future wife listening also.
well, I'm trying to say that, you know, there should be really no excuse for you trying to find a way to harness your skill and make them into something that can work for you.
Right.
You know, it's not just, you know, you don't just sit in a corner and say, you know, this program is there. No, find a way to use your skill, because I think everybody do have a skill. You know, unless you just have a gift that you don't want to show, then that's not a talent. You go, you expose it, you try something, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so you would have come back here after studying accounting, and when you came back, you worked in the Ministry of Sports?
Ministry of Finance,
Ministry of Finance?
Customs and Excise Department.
Oh, Customs. And so, like, how was that experience? How is that experience? I mean, the truth is that a lot of times we look at people involved in customs as the bad people who charge us a lot of money, not recognizing that they are, in truth and in fact, also part of the national security apparatus and all of that. So how was that?
Well, the experience has been was wonderful. I'm not physically there now. I'm still under suspension and so on. But I got the first chance of being in the customs in 2009 when I journeyed home from college on summer break. I worked there for I think 2 months, 3 months. I fell in love with it, and when I finished school in 2010, I got the opportunity in 2011, shortly thereafter, to become an employee of the government working at the Customs and Excise Department. At that time, Mr. Bell was the comptroller, and we did undergo some changes to build a better relationship with the general public, changes in infrastructure, and I think for the most part we had done that. At one point, we had some sensitization movement going out to the different radio stations, acknowledging World Customs today so that we can show the people what customs is more than just a tax collector.
Right.
So it's important to understand, though, that fundamentally, customs has a role, which is to, I guess by its mission statement, to collect revenue. But it also goes on to say with fairness and integrity. So this is how the country survives. This is the main source of how the country survives, by collecting taxes. We have no major natural resources here that we process and we export for revenue. So we have to tax everything that comes in, or almost everything that comes in order to generate revenue, to pay the roads, pay the teachers, pay the government employees, sustain the economy. That is the primary role of taxes. And the two main agencies for that is Inland Revenue and the Customs and Excise Department. And so people, even though they have to pay taxes, taxes are burdensome. Nobody likes to pay taxes. But it's a real critical part of our economy to generate revenue, and we have to do that by collecting taxes. What I'll say about the taxes is that based on the CARICOM, the taxes are generally the same across the CARICOM and the member states. Where you pay 25% duty on something, you may pay that in St Kitts, you may pay that in Antigua, or Grenada, or St Lucia. So from that aspect, and then the critical part, or the next critical part, is the border control. We had incidents where people always ask when there's a crime, where do the guns come in? And it's been known that some of them has been infiltrated through our borders, through our main ports.
Right.
And so the customs has a role to enforce and to ensure that our borders are kept safe, along with other agencies like the Coast Guard and so on. A fundamental responsibility to make sure and ensure that our borders are made safe, and that no contraband. Contraband is basically anything illegal. Doesn't come through the ports of entries and become a menace to society.
Yeah, I think that the role of the Customs and Excise Department sometimes gets overlooked, and like you said, because people on the position where they have to feel it, they write that check or swipe that card or pull out them bills, and so sometimes there's that tension between the public and the department.
And I think there's room for improvement, and that's one of the things that governments and regulators around the world have to look at. When we had the N1 scandal in the US, and when we had the scandal with the housing that led to the demise of many economies across the board, that was during my time of studying in school. And one thing we look at is regulations, and how long have these regulations been in place? How long have these treaties been in place? Where do we, as a government or as a people, look at these treaties, look at the way the world is trending, and say, is 25% still applicable to today? Should it be 20%?
Right.
Should it be 15%? Those are things that should be reviewed and continuously be changing according to where, because back then, the importation would have probably been minimal.
Right.
But because of things have changed so much, you could order something on eBay today and get it pretty much tomorrow.
Right.
So there's more importation. So let's see where we can make some changes in. And one thing people have been complaining about, though, is the way of the the VAT and the way it's constructed. It's
you don't listen to LNT.
It's tax and tax.
You don't listen to LNT, but I like that. Yeah.
So, you know, and during my time, there have been discussions and my affiliation with the Labour Party, and we've looked at that, and we demonstrated a plan to address that, because, you know, at the end of the day, the taxpayers are the ones that feels the burden. And so we will want to ensure that every time you put something in place, there's a way or there's a time frame in which you review. It's only natural these days. That's part of management. You review where you are over a period of time, you project, and you make decisions based on that.
Right. Well, you mentioned just now that you have an affiliation with the Labour Party, and of course it's public knowledge that you would have contested in the last election. But what was it that spurred that move into the political arena? So far, you would have mentioned, you know, involvement in sports, community development, and your professional endeavors. But I can tell you something. Like, for me, I don't see myself jumping in that bullring there.
Worth me.
So, you know, what was it that kind of sparked that move on your behalf?
Well, let's just say that you're already in the bullring. Voicing your opinion.
I could play that role, yeah.
Right. But to go actually and say that you want to contest,
right,
that's a different agenda. But it's the same. It's being where I grew up and being close to the action. Every time the political parties had an event in Molineux, it was also in my backyard on the same hardcore. So Labour or PAM would have activities there, and, you know, you have the first glimpse at it.
Up close and personal.
Right. And St. John Payne, who at the time, when he came in, he would come to Miss Williams' property, which is just 2 houses up from me. So I know the impact. I would know that he would make visits there. Roy Jones' office would have been just across the road. When Mr. Harris would have joined the campaign, actually my mom worked in his office. So I was always close to the political arena. And as you go up and you've been identified based on the relationships, based on the comments, based on what the public says, and for yourself, you might see yourself one day being at the podium. And so I think, as much as the opportunity presents itself, the environment in itself was calling for me. So, and based on the relationships with people and so on, it was something that, you know, I always said that if the opportunity provided itself, I would have taken that opportunity. And I did. And I have no regrets about it, because I think there were fruits to me engaging in politics at that level. You see the landmark case that happened in March of 2019. Where the judge would have said that the regulations of the government does not prohibit or should not prohibit a civil servant, which is a citizen of this country, the right to engage in politics. And look what the fruits of that is. Any civil servant can now be given a chance to become a senator of the government while being employed in the government. Dr. Jaya Clark is now the senator of the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. That is a direct correlation of me engaging in politics. And it's not just for her, it's for any single civil servants that is out there.
Well, so you know, like, because
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think the thing for me was, I was very curious when that happened, because this is something that would have been instituted some time back. And we would have had other candidates who would have chosen, for whatever reason, to resign from their civil service, and then go into campaigning an election.
Yeah, right. And there were 2 who did it with me. That was Kenny and Jeffrey.
Right. So there are. So my curious mind is asking, prior to you being put in a position where you would then have to defend your right to be able to contest, was that something that would have crossed your mind? And I would want to believe that it did, because like you said, there were other candidates who were, considering who made certain decisions based on what was best for them at the time. So prior to the case, what was your view on the whole situation, being able to contest, for a seat in the general elections while being a civil servant? One thing
led to the next. But one always have to do some research and do some, find an understanding. And I always had a question. Who is a candidate? I can be a candidate for the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, but based on the Constitution, I'm a candidate after nomination day. So even so, had I just taken that course, even without going to court, my view was that only after nomination day I become an official candidate that is challenging for a constituency. Right. So there was no reason for me to resign. When I did some research, I found that our first two prime ministers, the Right Honorable Dante Douglas and Mr. Simmons, Honorable Simmons, they were civil servants at the time when they were campaigning and running for elections. So I'm like, there's no regulation that is going to tell me as a citizen of this country that I cannot contest the elections. And if so, let the court tell me or tell whomever that Leon Natta can or cannot run for elections. And so we went down that path. Of course, it's known that the government, the office of the Prime Minister, had written to me and said that I was in violation of the Civil Service Code. And so I decided, with assistance of the Office of Sylvester Anthony and with assistance of Ms. Sukubab, that we are going to challenge this in court. Right. And so we did, and we were victorious. A landmark decision.
Because for me, I again, just looking at the whole landscape of that, I mean, I think that particular law would have come into effect or been tabled in, I think, 2014.
Yes.
In 2014 by the Labour Party, for which you were a candidate at the time.
Yes.
And so you stating that, you always had questions doing your research and whatever. Did that put you at a direct opposition to the philosophical views of the party for which you're running? Because, that's the question. Like, Labour are the one who put it in place. And here's a Labour candidate now who is saying, well, I mean, really agree with that. And like you said, that was even your view even prior to the case. Right. So did that put you at somewhat ahead with the philosophy of your own party?
No, it did not. And sometimes people have to agree to disagree. And so when I saw it, I wasn't part of the consultation then to know the understanding or the reasoning behind why one would not want a civil servant to engage in politics. Because engaging in politics is very broad. You can engage just by affiliation. You can engage and not say anything. But the political affairs of this country is determined or should be determined by the will of the people. Or whether you work for the government, yes or not, you should have an equal right into the debate of the affairs of this country. Because that is the survival of the people. Look at what's going on right now. People have been told what to do and what not to do when it comes to vaccine and other businesses, other aspect of their lives. And so it never brought any, loggerheads with me and the party. I just held my view. I thought of it. I looked at it, and I just decided, no, I'm not going to settle for that. There should be much more behind that. At the end of the day, I saw that, and I felt that the Constitution is the highest law of the land, which it is, and that gives you the right to affiliate and to join any groups or organization that you choose to. So I believe in the Constitution, and we should act accordingly.
Yeah, and I think that these are some of the things that should really be debated and put and thought about, because a lot of times we end up in situations where we were talking about it earlier. Sometimes it feels like you elect your dictators, and even though I might support you, I might not share all the views you have. But sometimes it's very difficult to feel like you have a place in the debate and the policy making decisions after election, right? But if we're able to discuss these types of topics, these types of issues, with the goal of, just making the country better and making the process better.
Which it should be.
I think we could really see some movement to the better. But I'll be honest, there were some people who, upon you announcing your intentions to run for the election that was upcoming, they say, bye, nobody could be no there against Timo. So, how did you? Let me put it this way. I don't like to put on anybody what I think success should be. What would success have looked like for you in the last upcoming election? Do you think you were successful? Even though unfortunately you would not have received the numbers necessary for you to win. But is there any takeaway? What was your goal going into it?
Any moral victory?
Yeah, I mean, because I'll be honest, like I said, people were looking at it like by...
This is a difficult one. But
that's a dead note. And because there's some places in St Kitts where there's been traditional support of either certain candidates or certain parties. And so, when people come in on the opposite side of whatever is long-standing or long-held, people go like, bye, they ain't really no chance there.
Especially new people, so.
Yeah, especially new people. So, but I don't want to say, well, because you weren't successful at the polls. Well,
there was no success.
Yeah, there was no success at all.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about how you felt about that. And because, like I said, it might have come off to a lot of people like it was a suicide mission.
Right. And I think it was June 22nd, 2018. I had a event at Atlas Playing Field. It was like an announcement of my candidacy. And I said then, do not look at this as a race between Leon trying to defeat Timothy. Look at this as what I'm trying to bring to the table so that the people of constituency number 7 could benefit. My debates were to ensure that the person who is elected to parliament to represent constituency 7 would be held accountable, but also to bring vision of development that can bring opportunities for every household in constituency 7 and beyond. But you have to focus there because that is your constituency. But let me just recap a little bit just to show you something. In 1998, I could remember having a meeting with Timothy Harris, then just Honorable Timothy Harris, at his office in Church Street. The purpose of my meeting, going to him, would be to discuss with him about the development of the area, which is in Molyneux. I encouraged him to get the lands that were available in Upper Borio and Lower Borio, where Fritz and Son is now, or where his brother lives going up into Borio, make those lands available to people because people are crying out for land. That was 98. By 2000, 2001, many of the lands were given out. That was me having a direct impact on that. The relationships, because that's something I can't hide, that me and the Harrises were very tight. The advice that I would have given and the consultation that we had, myself and his brother Len Harris, led to a number of things happening in and around the constituency. Strange enough, that $500 that is going around, what do you call it?
I don't want to call the wrong name. Like the
poverty alleviation.
Yeah,
poverty alleviation program. That started out, and when it came out, I can remember on the 14th of, on Independence Day of 2000, I think it was 15 or 14. It was before 2014. When I saw the press release that Harris had put out, I saw the words that I had used to learn inside of that press release. So I said that again, even though it's not the way in which I would have put it, the understanding, the concept of the livable wage. That was my sentiments on the matter. I think I would have expressed that, when we had the last increase in minimum wage, we missed an opportunity where we could have increased the livable the wages so that people can live a little more comfortable.
Right.
And so when I saw that, I was like, oh wow, that's one of my things there. And if you look at the agendas in which I push, going to develop the constituency and so on, look at what's happening in St. Peter's right now and in Kenya with the lack of water. I just screenshot a post that I made leading up to the elections after doing the careful research and communication with the people in the constituency, understanding where we want to go with housing. If we are going to be building, as we projected, 2,000 houses per term, and you're going to build 50 houses in constituency number 7, if you add the climate change situation to that, it's better now that we secure by building more catchment of water so that in time to come, we don't have the same situation at Kevon that has always had a problem, and St. Peter's. So the stuff that I put forward was to ensure that going down the road, people would have an opportunity to develop themselves in the constituency and outside. Not only that, but naturally canvassing to people and saying to people, this is where we want to go, that is what we want to do, trying to get their vote. I was able to get people to get stuff that they would have not get under normal circumstances from the government, because Leon Natta is now coming with a plan. Somebody asked him, I talked to Leon yesterday, but the man sound good, the man have plans. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, so there was a lot of benefit from me running. The benefit didn't come to me as I would have liked, but I believe the platform that I created, and overall, one of my biggest things that I wanted to achieve is to have young people, younger people becoming more confident to go into politics, because soon enough, that era of 93 and 95 politics and politicians would soon pass us by. So where is the next crop of leaders that's going to come from? So I believe that my hope was to, at the end of the day, encourage, inspire, motivate some young mind to have a chance to say, I could be that person. Just like, it would have impacted me, I could be that person. And so I believe I would have created that. I believe I would have brought more attraction to the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. And I believe that, I had a bigger impact on that last election than a lot of people who would have engaged in politics for very first time.
Yeah, I think, like you said, sometimes, being on the platform and being in the race puts you in a position to influence what your competition is doing and has to do, and then what they would have to be held accountable for if successful. Just like what you would have to be accountable for if you were successful. So you also mentioned the intention to help spark a new generation of politicians and persons getting involved in politics. How do you believe that, and I'll say we, because although I claim to be 769, in this life I'm far younger than that.
Right.
So in this for us young people, how do you think we could help to move what the previous generation of politicians would have done and established? What do you think are some of the ways that we need to move politics forward in St Kitts and Nevis?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I'll say this, and I know you're going to ask me back a question on this. It's easier to fix a problem than it is to change a culture. All problems usually have a solution. The solution may not be immediate, but cultures take forever to change, and it's difficult to change cultures overnight. You can find a solution to a problem overnight, but cultures are very difficult to change. I think we had a setback in terms of motivating and inspiring people to become politicians, especially with my matter, the way that I was dealt with, the victimization with the firearm issue, which I'm still dealing with, the way that we treat young people coming into politics. It hasn't set the right perception to the younger folks. It's more victimization, it's more divisive. Yes, and so we have to recover from that. It takes strong-minded people to keep being in politics, like myself, like Kenny, you know, so like Canwis, Aquila, keep being strong-minded, keep the will to continue being active and participate in politics. Senator Clark is now on the scene, and I'm sure there's going to be more senators, and we will have more people coming in and out of the Labour Party very shortly. But it takes that to form the perception that, no, this is not an exclusive thing, you know. This is an inclusive thing, and people have the right to join the political parties, affiliate as they like, and the democratic process is as it should be. But it also takes, at the end of the day, some of the people who are at the helms now to move on. And once that happens, it creates more space. It creates, look at what we did with the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, the Constitution. We created more space and opportunities in that to be attractive to people, because we don't want people to think that, no, there's some Labour club that is at the helm. We're saying open up, have more deputies, have more spaces and the executive, so that you can inspire and encourage people to join the party. And I think we have set the trend that where parties need to go down the road. So the parties have a role to play, and the individuals, by their ethics, by their behavior, they need to conduct themselves in a way that is inspiring to people to be attractive to the politics. And you know, we have to be careful, because if we continue where we're going, it's more tribal politics, where people are more in it for themselves and so on, and based on an agenda that they speak of this. Not the community democratic politics, you know, where once the community survive, once the constituency survive, I will survive, you know. So we have to be careful on that.
Right.
So, because, well, you just said something that I found interesting, which is we have to somehow encourage people to start stepping up. So if, for instance, your current leader of your party, if he decides to hand the mantle to you, do you think you would be ready to step up for it? Or is that something being discussed, him stepping down and having somebody younger step up to the plate?
Well, first off, I'll say that he had made it abundantly clear, and we are speaking about the Right Honourable Dr. Denzel Douglas. He had made it abundantly clear that last election, his position on going into any other elections. I think he mentioned on several occasions, I know he mentioned on several occasions that election would have been his last. I am one whose relationship with him has, you know, we didn't have much before 2018, 2017, but I've come to understand him and a lot of him and how he operates. And if he says that is last, I believe, I took his word for it that is his last. So yes, that has opened the opportunities for anyone in the Labour Party, not just myself, Dr. Joe, Honourable Jeffrey Hanley, Canwis Maynard, my colleague Kenny Douglas. So all of that has you know, inspired and opened the opportunities for people like me or the others to take the mantle. And trust me, we are willing, we are ready, we are able, we are confident that the next Labour Party that presents itself to the people with the new leadership, we are going to be one to reckon with. So I'm just patiently waiting for that time to come.
Yeah, I think that whether you are a Labour supporter or you support some other party, there has been a feeling that there needs to be some rotation, some mentorship. Not that some of these leaders they go off the scene and ride off into the sunset, but there is that succession that is obvious to the supporters of the party, because it then gives them some confidence in the future of the party, being able to see, hey, this is the succession, this is who we're grooming, this is where we're going, this is the plan, as opposed to sometimes it feels like the parties are just doing what they have to do to try and win the next election, right? And I think that, and I could speak for myself, I could speak for some of the people that I converse with, that type of politics where it feels like we're just going and trying to see what we could do to win this next election is getting very, it's a big turnoff. It's a big turnoff for a lot of young people who want to see what is the plan for this particular party going forward for the country. And sometimes it's hard to see that when you can't see the plan for the party itself, right? And so I think all the political parties really need to work on succession planning, making sure that is visible, making sure that the supporters of the party can see where the party is going, and so you could have confidence that my support of this party could then translate into long-term vision for the country.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, but I just like that time kind of running us up, right? Easy so. But it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Again, really appreciate you coming in and taking the time out to speak to us. And sometimes, when persons like yourself get involved in politics, we sometimes see them just strictly through a political lens, and being able to talk to you about you grew up, the stuff you're involved in, sports, education, your professional life. I think that goes a long way in humanizing people in your position. So really appreciate you coming and being so open with us about all of this kind of stuff. But guys, it's Thursday, all day today apparently.
Tomorrow is Friday.
And then Friday usually just come after Thursday.
Still, I really want to thank you guys for the invitation. I've been a listener of Island Tea for quite some time. Yeah. Actually, one of the biggest joke I had for the year is from Island Tea. Well, political joke. I remember the last, one parliament session they had, and you guys was on before, and I think parliament had started 10 o'clock. So one of you guys joked and said, I don't understand it, but Labour lose the election, but Labour still take a majority in the House because Dougie still money one. So I was like,
I would have to be Kevon.
So I was like, wow, that's the youth coming out, being able to make fun of things. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to come on Island Tea today, and I believe and I know for a fact that once the invitation is there to come again, we will address it better. We will actually have our tea. And it was a privilege for me to share the platform with you guys today. And I'm so proud of you, both of you. And Mr. Bailey, I've seen you in action in your musicianship. And the work that you did, I think it was last Carnival and so on. I'm appreciate if you don't speak to people, you don't get the chance to, if you're not in the same space.
Right.
So, I encourage you guys to continue to do what you're doing. And it was a pleasure for me to be here this morning. But again, I say to you and Ms. Johnson, that it's easier to fix a problem than it is to change a culture.
Right.
And so when you have people doing the same things over years and years, that's going to be hard to change. But a problem you can sit down, diagnose, and come
up with a solution.
But to change a culture, it takes consultation, it takes effort, it takes repetition, and it takes new people to change cultures. So I want to thank you again for having me this morning, and I look forward to the next Island Tea.
Yeah, man, definitely. And